The crimson alert flashed across every screen in the command center, bathing Lieutenant Laura Nguyen's face in an ominous red glow. Silence fell across the room as dozens of eyes turned toward the main display, where a digital countdown materialized. 72. "Confirmation received," announced the synthetic voice of Astra, the planetary defense AI. "Skyfall object on direct collision course with Earth. Impact in 72 hours. Laura's fingers tightened around the edge of her command console. The Skyfall asteroid, a colossal rock spanning nearly 2 kilometers across, had been tracked for months. But recent calculations had revealed the devastating truth. Its trajectory would bring it directly to Earth. In the 23rd millennium, humanity had spread across the solar system, establishing outposts on Mars, the Jovian moons, and even the distant rings of Saturn. Yet, Earth remained the cradle of civilization, home to 8 billion souls, and the seat of the Planetary Union. Laura, as commander of the Planetary Union's Rapid Response Unit, now carried the weight of those billions on her shoulders. "What are our options?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. Professor Min, the Union's leading physicist, stepped forward. His weathered face reflected decades of scientific breakthroughs. But today, it bore only grave concern. "The orbital defense grid is our first line," he explained, activating a holographic display. "But Skyfall's composition is unusual. Dense metallic core with volatile outer layers. Standard deflection may not be sufficient." Laura nodded, absorbing the information while scanning the room. Her team, the best minds humanity had to offer, awaited her command. Among them stood Dr. Arjun, the radiation specialist whose theories on quantum plasma had revolutionized space travel. Dai, the pilot whose instincts had saved countless lives during the Neptune incident. And Mira, the youngest yet perhaps most brilliant navigator in the fleet. "Prepare the Aurora," Laura ordered. "We'll launch within the hour and deploy the nuclear deterrent package." The next 6 hours blurred into a frenzy of preparation. The Aurora, humanity's most advanced spacecraft, ascended into low Earth orbit, carrying the most powerful weapons ever created by human hands, a constellation of nuclear warheads designed to fracture the asteroid into manageable pieces. Laura stood on the bridge, watching Earth's blue curve below as they approached the deployment zone. The plan was straightforward: position the warheads at strategic points along the asteroid's path, detonate in sequence, and divert the fragments away from Earth's trajectory. "Warheads primed and ready," reported Mira, her fingers dancing across the navigation panel. "Deployment in 3, 2, 1. A sudden alert cut through the moment of anticipation. The guidance systems on the primary warhead cluster had malfunctioned. Instead of spreading in a calculated pattern, the warheads had clustered together. "Abort!" Laura commanded. "Remote deactivate all charges!" But it was too late. The detonation sequence had begun. A blinding flash erupted in space, followed by a shockwave that rocked the Aurora. When the sensors cleared, the horrifying truth became evident. Rather than fragmenting the asteroid, the explosion had merely altered its composition. A portion had become a massive, highly volatile fuel source, increasing the potential impact zone by 20%. "Lieutenant Nguyen," came the grim voice of Admiral Zhou through the comms. "The situation has escalated. Initiate Skyfall protocol. You are authorized to take any and all measures necessary to save our planet." Laura's blood ran cold. The Skyfall protocol was the measure of last resort, a contingency plan developed for extinction-level events. It granted her team unlimited resources and authority. But it also acknowledged one terrible truth: success was no longer guaranteed. "Understood, Admiral," she responded, her voice hollow. Skyfall protocol initiated. As the Aurora returned to Earth, Laura could see the first signs of global panic. News of the failed attempt had leaked, and cities across the planet had erupted in chaos. Emergency measures were being implemented, bunkers opened, evacuation zones established. But everyone knew the truth. If Skyfall hit, there would be no safe haven. The Himalayan Command Center, buried deep within the mountain range, had been designed for precisely this scenario. As Lara led her team into the fortified facility, she could feel the weight of responsibility threatening to crush her. 8 billion lives, species preserved for millennia, the entire legacy of human civilization, all depending on her decisions over the next 66 hours. "Gather in the strategic room," she ordered. "We need solutions, now." The team assembled around a circular table, embedded with holographic projectors. Professor Min initiated the briefing, displaying the latest trajectory data. "The asteroid will impact here." He indicated a point in the Pacific Ocean. "The initial blast will vaporize everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Tsunamis will devastate coastal regions worldwide. The debris cloud will trigger a nuclear winter, lasting decades." Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. "What if we try again with a more dispersed nuclear approach?" suggested Mira. "The volatility has increased exponentially," Dr. Arjun countered. "Another nuclear detonation might accelerate the asteroid rather than divert it." Lara studied each face around the table. These were the finest minds of their generation. Yet she could see the shadow of doubt in their eyes, the same doubt that gnawed at her core. Could they truly prevent this catastrophe? Was she qualified to lead humanity's last stand? "I need options," she stated firmly, pushing aside her personal doubts. "Every possibility, no matter how remote." For hours, theories and calculations flew across the room. Deflection shields, gravitational anchors, massive terrestrial cannons. Each proposal was analyzed, modeled, and ultimately discarded as insufficient or impossible within the time frame. As the clock ticked down to 60 hours, reports flooded in from across the globe. Martial law had been declared in most countries. Religious fervor reached unprecedented levels, with mass gatherings in sacred sites worldwide. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Claims that Skyfall was an engineered weapon, that secret bunkers existed for the elite, that the asteroid contained alien biological agents. "Lieutenant," interrupted an aide, "there's a situation in New Shanghai. Riots have broken out. The Chinese government is requesting guidance." Before Lara could respond, another alert sounded. Similar reports from Lagos, Mexico City, and New London. Civil unrest is spreading. Lara massaged her temples. "Connect me to the global emergency broadcast system. I'll address the public directly." Minutes later, her face appeared on screens across the planet, drawing on every ounce of composure. She spoke directly to a terrified humanity. "Citizens of Earth, this is Lieutenant Lara Nguyen of the Planetary Union. I understand your fear. The threat we face is real. But I promise you this: we have not given up. The finest minds on the planet are working tirelessly to avert this crisis. Stay in your homes. Follow evacuation orders if issued. Support one another. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will do so again." As she terminated the broadcast, Lara wondered if she had just lied to 8 billion people. Did they truly have a chance? Or was she merely offering false hope? Dr. Arjun approached as she stood lost in thought. "Lieutenant, I may have something." He led her to his workstation where complex equations and simulations ran across multiple screens. "My research on quantum plasma technology," he explained. "We've been developing it for deep space propulsion, but it might be repurposed." "How would it help us?" Lara asked, studying the incomprehensible calculations. "Quantum plasma can generate a disruption field capable of breaking molecular bonds," Arjun continued. "If we could deploy a large enough field directly at Skyfall, we could potentially disintegrate its structure at the atomic level." Hope flickered in Lara's chest. "Can we build something like that in time?" "We already have the prototype, the Orion. But there's a catch." Arjun's expression darkened. "The energy required would be immense. We'd need to harvest radiation from the Van Allen belts, the most concentrated radiation zones surrounding Earth. And the Orion can do this? Yes, but at extreme risk to the crew. The radiation exposure would be significant. Lara understood the implication. Potentially fatal. Arjun nodded grimly. Almost certainly. For a moment, Lara considered the moral implications. Could she order her team, her friends, into what amounted to a suicide mission? But what choice did they have? Prepare the Orion, she decided. I'll pilot it myself. With respect, Lieutenant, came Dai's voice from behind her. You're needed in command. I'll fly the mission. Lara turned to see her entire team had gathered, each face resolute. This isn't a solo mission, Professor Min added. We'll need a full science team to calibrate the plasma core correctly. The radiation levels, Lara began. We know the risks, interrupted Mira. 8 billion lives against our few? The math is simple. Lara looked at each of them, overwhelmed by their courage. Prepare the Orion, she ordered. We launch in 6 hours. As preparations for the Orion mission proceeded, the global situation deteriorated further. The power grid in Eastern Europe failed completely as panic led to overloads. Reports of mass suicides emerged from multiple regions. Religious extremists proclaimed the end times had arrived. Lara monitored these developments with growing concern. Even if they succeeded, what kind of world would they be saving? Would civilization recover from this trauma? 5 hours before launch, Dai approached her in the equipment bay as she checked her radiation suit. I need to speak with you privately, he requested. Once alone, his professional demeanor cracked. This is madness. Lara, we're throwing our lives away on untested technology. You volunteered, she reminded him, for a mission with a chance of success. Arjun's plasma theory is just that, a theory. We're not just risking our lives. We're throwing away valuable minds that could be working on actual solutions. Lara studied her old friend. They had trained together, faced danger together, but never had she seen such fear in his eyes. What would you have me do? She asked quietly. Evacuate key personnel to the Mars colonies. Preserve what we can of human knowledge and genetic diversity. Prepare for survival after impact. His words struck Lara like physical blows. He was suggesting they abandon Earth, abandon billions, to focus on preserving a select few. That's not an option, she stated firmly. It's the only rational option, Dai countered, his voice rising. We're throwing our conscience into a reactor core and hoping it powers a miracle. Lara stepped closer, her voice dropping to ensure they weren't overheard. Listen to me carefully. If you can't commit to this mission, I'll find another pilot. But don't you dare suggest we abandon humanity to die while we save ourselves. Dai fell silent, conflict evident on his face. Finally, he nodded. I'll fly the mission, but I want it on record that I believe this is a mistake. Noted, Lara replied coldly. Pre-flight checks in 30 minutes. As Dai walked away, Lara leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Was Dai right? Was she leading her team, the brightest minds of their generation, to a pointless death? No, she couldn't accept that. They had to try. The launch countdown reached 0, and the Orion lifted off from the Himalayan base, streaking into the sky on a column of blue flame. The spacecraft was humanity's most advanced research vessel, originally designed for deep space exploration, but hastily retrofitted for their desperate mission. As they ascended, Lara addressed the team from the command center. You're now Earth's last, best hope. The plasma core has been loaded with all available power. Your task is to reach the radiation belt, harvest the energy, and then intercept Skyfall before it crosses the lunar orbit. Understood, Command, responded Mira, who had taken the navigation station aboard Orion. Estimated time to radiation belt, 47 minutes. Those 47 minutes stretched like an eternity. Lara monitored every system, every vital sign of the crew, searching for any potential issue. The Orion performed flawlessly, a testament to human engineering. If only the same could be said for the increasingly chaotic situation on Earth. "Lieutenant," called an aide, "we're detecting unusual movement from the Russian orbital platform." Lara turned to the tactical display. The Russians maintained a military research station in high orbit, ostensibly for defensive purposes. Now, it appeared to be adjusting its position. "Open a channel," she ordered. The face of Colonel Petrov appeared on screen, his expression grim. "Lieutenant Nguyen, we are repositioning to provide assistance to your mission. We appreciate the support, Colonel, but your station isn't equipped for... We have retrofitted our primary energy cannon to provide additional power to your plasma core." Petrov interrupted. "It may increase your chances." Lara was momentarily stunned by the unexpected cooperation. "Thank you, Colonel." "Do not thank me, Lieutenant. Save our world." As the communication ended, a new alert sounded, this one far more alarming. Skyfall had unexpectedly altered its trajectory. "What happened?" Lara demanded. Professor Min, monitoring from an adjacent station, looked up in shock. "It appears to have collided with a satellite cluster. The impact has changed its course. It's accelerating and fragmenting." The implications were immediate and catastrophic. The fragmentation meant multiple impact points rather than one concentrated blast, potentially spreading destruction across a wider area. And the acceleration meant less time. "New impact projection, 48 hours, announced Astra. "Probability of extinction level event now at 97%. The news hit the command center like a physical blow. Their timeline had just been cut by nearly a day. "Orion, this is command," Lara transmitted. "Adjust your mission parameters. Target intercept has accelerated. You need to complete energy harvesting within the next 2 hours." "That's barely enough time to reach the radiation belt," protested Dr. Arjun. "We need at least 4 hours for proper energy accumulation." "You have 2, Lara stated firmly. "Find a way." As the Orion continued its ascent, another crisis emerged. The acceleration of Skyfall had triggered panic in the global power infrastructure, attempting to channel emergency power to evacuation zones. The North American grid had overloaded. Cascading failures spread across the interconnected global network. Within minutes, 80% of Earth was plunged into darkness. The Himalayan Command Center, operating on independent power, remained functional, but communications with much of the planet were severed. Lara found herself increasingly isolated, coordinating humanity's last stand with diminishing resources and mounting obstacles. "Orion entering radiation belt," reported the tracking officer. "Energy harvesting commencing." On board the Orion, the crew worked frantically. The radiation levels rose steadily, exceeding safety parameters within minutes. Their specialized suits offered limited protection, but everyone aboard knew they were absorbing lethal doses. "Plasma core at 20% capacity," reported Dr. Arjun. "We need at least 80 for disruption potential." "The radiation concentration is highest near the magnetic pole convergence," suggested Mira. "If we position there..." "The hull integrity won't withstand those levels," Dai interrupted. "We'll be cooked before the core charges." Professor Min, monitoring from Earth, offered a solution. "There's a focusing technique we developed for the Mars shield generators. If you reconfigure the hull plating to channel radiation directly to the core intake, you might accelerate the process." "That would expose the crew compartment to extreme radiation," Dai objected. "We're already dead," stated Dr. Arjun matter-of-factly. "The question is whether we die accomplishing our mission or failing it." After a moment of silence, Dai's voice came through. "Beginning hull reconfiguration. Everyone to the central chamber for maximum shielding." The next hour passed in agonizing tension. The Orion's hull glowed with absorbed radiation, channeling the deadly energy into the plasma core. In the command center, Lara watched the crew's vital signs deteriorating. Elevated heart rates, rising body temperatures, the first signs of acute radiation poisoning. Plasma core at 75%, reported Dr. Arjun, his voice noticeably weaker. Proceeding to intercept coordinates. Negative, Lara countered. You need 80% minimum for disruption. We don't have time, Mira explained. Skyfall has accelerated again. Current intercept window closing in 17 minutes. Lara faced an impossible decision. Send the Orion with insufficient power and risk complete failure, or demand they continue charging and miss the intercept window entirely. Proceed to intercept, she ordered finally. We'll have to make 75% work. The Orion disengaged from the radiation belt, its hull still glowing with absorbed energy. As it accelerated toward the intercept point, Lara addressed the team one final time. What you're doing today transcends heroism, she told them. Whatever happens, know that humanity witnessed your courage. Save the speeches for after we succeed, Dai responded, though his voice held no resentment now, only grim determination. The Orion approached the fragmenting Skyfall asteroid at tremendous speed. The main body remained largely intact, a mountain-sized rock hurtling toward Earth, trailing smaller, but still devastating fragments. Plasma core ready for discharge, announced Dr. Arjun. Targeting main body. Wait, interrupted Professor Min from Earth. The fragmentation pattern offers an opportunity. If you target the leading edge with a focused beam, you might trigger a chain reaction through the existing stress fractures. Would that compensate for our power deficit? Asked Mira. Theoretically, yes. The internal forces would amplify the disruptive effect. Adjusting targeting parameters, confirmed Dai. Plasma discharge in 30 seconds. At that moment, disaster struck. A small fragment of Skyfall collided with the Russian orbital platform. The explosion was catastrophic, sending debris hurtling in all directions, including directly toward the Orion. Incoming debris, shouted Mira. Impact in 3 seconds. The collision rocked the spacecraft violently. Alarms blared as systems failed across the board. The most critical damage affected the plasma discharge mechanism. The focusing array had been destroyed. Status report, demanded Lara. Hull breach in sections 4 and 7, reported Mira, her voice strained. Life support compromised. Plasma core intact but discharge mechanism damaged. Can you still target Skyfall? Lara asked. A moment of silence followed before Dai responded. Not precisely. The focusing array is gone. We'd be lucky to hit the asteroid at all, let alone target a specific section. There is another option, Dr. Arjun suggested hesitantly. The plasma core itself contains the disruptive potential, if delivered directly to the target. The implication hung in the air. He was suggesting a suicide run, ramming the Orion itself into Skyfall. Absolutely not, Lara stated firmly. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Professor Min confirmed, his voice heavy with regret. The mathematics are clear. A direct core delivery is the only option with sufficient disruptive potential. 6 hours remained until impact. 6 hours until the potential end of human civilization. Lara stared at the countdown, feeling as though she were suffocating under the pressure. Prepare for manual navigation to impact point, ordered Dai suddenly. I can pilot us directly into the main stress fracture. Wait, Lara commanded. There has to be an alternative. Lieutenant, Dai responded, his voice surprisingly calm. You were right before. We can't abandon humanity. This is the job we signed up for. The radiation has already compromised our cellular integrity, added Dr. Arjun. None of us will survive the return journey. At least this way. Our deaths have meaning. Lara fought against the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. These weren't just colleagues. They were friends, comrades who had stood beside her through countless challenges. And now, she was sending them to certain death. Initiating final approach, announced Dai. Core at maximum capacity? Wait, interrupted Professor Min. I've been analyzing the core configuration. There might be a way to eject just the core module while preserving the command section. Explain, demanded Lara, seizing the faint hope. If you separate the spacecraft along Section Junction 5, the automated systems could pilot the core module into the target, while the command module retreats to safe distance. The ejection mechanism was damaged in the collision, Mira pointed out. It would require manual override from the engineering section. Another impossible choice. Someone would have to stay behind to trigger the separation. I'll do it, volunteered Dr. Arjun. As the core designer, I'm the logical choice to ensure proper delivery. No, countered Dai. I need to pilot the core section to ensure accurate targeting. The rest of you take the command module. Both of you would be needed, Professor Min interjected. One to navigate, one to manage the core stability. Lara closed her eyes, the weight of command crushing her spirit. She was sending 2 of her people to certain death. Final approach commencing, reported Dai. 4 minutes to contact. On the Orion, frantic preparations were underway. The damaged spacecraft was being reconfigured for its final mission. Dr. Arjun worked to stabilize the plasma core, while Dai calculated the precise trajectory needed to strike Skyfall's structural weakness. Command module separation protocols initiated, reported Mira. Preparing for emergency evacuation. The clock ticked down mercilessly. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. The Orion closed on Skyfall, its damaged hull gleaming in the harsh light of space. 1 minute to separation, announced Mira. Command module systems ready. In the final moments before separation, Dai opened a private channel to Lara. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I'm sorry for doubting the mission. You were right to make us try. Come back alive, Lara responded, knowing the impossibility of her request. That's an order. Some orders can't be followed, Lieutenant, he replied with a sad smile. Initiating separation in 3, 2, 1. The Orion split apart, the command module firing its thrusters to accelerate away from the doomed core section. On the monitors in the Himalayan command center, Lara watched as the core module, piloted by Dai with Dr. Arjun manning the plasma systems, hurtled towards Skyfall's massive bulk. Core stability at critical levels, reported Arjun, his voice remarkably steady. Preparing for maximum yield detonation. Targeting stress fracture, confirmed Dai. Impact in 15 seconds. The command center fell silent, every eye fixed on the display. The tiny dot representing the core module closed on the massive asteroid. It's been an honor, said Dai, his final transmission before impact. The collision, when it came, seemed almost anticlimactic at first, a tiny flash against the enormous rock. For a heartbeat, Lara feared they had failed. Then, a spreading web of blue energy engulfed Skyfall. The quantum plasma, released directly into the asteroid's structure, began its work at the molecular level. Fractures appeared across Skyfall's surface, spreading like lightning through its mass. The asteroid seemed to shudder, then began to break apart, not in large, dangerous chunks, but disintegrating into its component elements. Plasma reaction exceeding predicted parameters, exclaimed Professor Min. The disruption is cascading through the entire structure. On the monitors, Skyfall continued to dissolve, the process accelerating as each new fracture exposed more material to the plasma effect. Within minutes, what had been a planet-killing asteroid was reduced to a dispersing cloud of dust and pebble-sized fragments. Analysis confirms, announced Astra, its synthetic voice somehow conveying wonder. Skyfall has been neutralized. Remaining fragments will burn up in atmosphere or impact oceanic regions with minimal effect. For a moment, no one in the command center moved or spoke. The realization that they had succeeded, that Earth would survive, seemed too immense to immediately comprehend. Then, a single clap broke the silence, followed by another, and another, building into thunderous applause and cheers. Tears flowed freely as the enormity of their achievement sank in. They had faced extinction and prevailed. Lara did not join the celebration. Her thoughts were with Dai and Dr. Arjun, who had given their lives for this victory, and with Mira and the surviving crew of the Orion's command module, still making their way back to Earth. "Status of the command module?" she requested. "Stable trajectory," reported the tracking officer. "But life signs are critical. Radiation exposure was significant." "Prepare medical teams," Lara ordered. "I want the best radiation specialists waiting when they land." The hours that followed passed in a blur of activity. As news of Skyfall's destruction spread, the global panic began to subside. Power systems were gradually restored. Governments re-established control. The long process of rebuilding societal trust began. The Orion's command module made a controlled descent, landing in the Pacific Ocean where medical ships waited. The survivors, including Mira, were immediately transferred to specialized treatment facilities. Their prognosis remained uncertain. The radiation exposure had been far beyond survivable levels. 3 days after Skyfall's destruction, Lara visited the medical facility where Mira was being treated. The young navigator lay in a sealed chamber, her body ravaged by radiation sickness. "Lieutenant," Mira greeted her weakly. "We did it." "Yes," Lara agreed, pressing her palm against the transparent barrier separating them. "Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you." "Dai and Arjun," Mira began, tears forming in her eyes. "They never hesitated. Not for a second." "I know," Lara replied softly. "Their names will never be forgotten." "And what about us?" Mira asked, gesturing to her failing body. "The doctors aren't optimistic." Lara leaned closer to the barrier. "Listen to me. You survived Skyfall. You can survive this too. Fight. Mira, the world you saved needs you." A week later, Lara stood at the observation deck of the Himalayan facility, watching the sunrise paint the mountain peaks in gold. The world was changed forever. The near-extinction event had united humanity in ways previously unimaginable. Old conflicts seemed petty in the face of what they had nearly lost. A new era of cooperation had begun. Professor Min joined her at the window, his aged face reflecting the golden light. "The quantum plasma technology," he began. "Arjun's final calculations are remarkable. What he and Dai accomplished will revolutionize our understanding of matter itself." "A fitting legacy," Lara replied. "And yours?" Min asked. "The world is calling you a hero." Lara shook her head. "I just did my job. The real heroes made the ultimate sacrifice." "What will you do now?" Min inquired. "You've been offered admiralty." "I'm going to decline," Lara decided. "There's too much work to be done rebuilding and preparing." "Preparing?" "Skyfall won't be the last threat we face," Lara explained, her gaze turning to the stars, now fading in the morning light. "Next time, we need to be ready." 3 months later, Lara stood before the newly established Global Defense Council. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered to hear her proposal. "Skyfall taught us that our existence is fragile," she began. "Our victory came at tremendous cost, a cost we cannot afford to pay again. I propose the establishment of the Sentinel program, a comprehensive planetary defense system incorporating early detection, intervention capabilities, and contingency protocols for every conceivable threat." As she outlined her vision, Lara felt a sense of purpose stronger than anything she had known before. The near extinction had changed her, just as it had changed humanity. The doubts that had plagued her during the crisis had been replaced by unwavering determination. In a private room of the medical facility, Mira watched the broadcast. Against all odds, she had survived. The experimental treatments developed in the wake of the crisis had saved her and several other crew members. Though her recovery would take years, she had been given a second chance. "She's something else, isn't she?" remarked the nurse, nodding toward Lara's image on the screen. "She is," agreed Mira. She never lost faith, not in the mission, not in humanity, not in us. As Lara concluded her address, she looked directly into the camera, her expression resolute. Skyfall was not just a crisis averted. It was a wake-up call. We stood at the precipice of extinction and pulled back through courage, sacrifice, and unity. These are the qualities that define us, that make us human. Let us carry them forward into this new era, not just as survivors, but as guardians of our shared future. The chamber erupted in applause. But Lara's thoughts were elsewhere, with those who had given everything to ensure humanity would have a tomorrow. Their sacrifice had taught her the most important lesson of all. In our darkest hour, it is not technology or weapons that save us, but the indomitable human spirit and the bonds we forge with one another. As she left the podium, Lara's gaze turned toward the vast blue ocean, visible through the chamber's windows. Somewhere out there, the remnants of Skyfall continued their harmless descent, burning up in the atmosphere as shooting stars, once harbingers of doom, now symbols of hope and renewal for a humanity forever changed.